Hey everybody, on here coming to you with this month's video for taking a look at what's happening more on a geopolitical world event kind of area of life. And this month we're really going to be looking at giving power back to the people. That's going to be a big theme in April. And also a time to assess things. Got my notes there, so taking a look at that. For those that don't know, I am an energy mentor. So what I am looking at is I'm looking at the energy currents and patterns that are present, how they're integrating together, and what that can bring up, stir up, what opportunities that offers in the world, what things are likely to surface as a result of those energy patterns being active in our world. And every year, what I do is I put out this book, The Code Journey. And this one was from 2026. I guess I don't know, maybe it'll come through, maybe it won't. Anyways, I'm working on 2027, which releases in the summer. We always release them in the summer, and then, um, it's all ready to go for the following year. Changing the format up a little bit this year, which I think is going to be good and more accessible for people to follow, which will be wonderful. But I like to put these out because I have a lot of people that like to still know what's happening. Like, what are the energy currents that's going to affect world events? So that's going to affect things that are happening, whether that's, do we have things that are going to create wars? Do we have things that are going to offer up peace? Do we have what's going to happen? And while this isn't designed to tell us, hey, so and so is going to resign from their position on this date at this time, or this is going to happen at this date and time. It's not a predictive thing. It's about understanding the currents and realizing, okay, if we have a lot of storm energy coming in, okay, great. I can go and prep for a storm and make sure I've got, batteries around and backup on things and, some extra food in the house or whatever it is. So that's kind of what energy currents do for us. It's again, it's not so much a really a predictive thing as it is understanding what's present. And that allows us to be prepared. That allows us to kind of understand what might be surfacing and what's going to come up in the news cycles and things like that. I don't work with any intel people or anything like that. I find most of those people are fake bought and paid for anyways. So they're just spreading narratives. They're just ops. 98% of them probably. I don't know. I don't care. And the bigger their name is, probably the bigger the ops they're involved in. So this is my perspective. It's original work. Take it or leave it for what you want. But I do encourage you, if you like what you hear, share the channel out. I can always use likes and channel subscriptions and all of that. So if you want to follow up on the work and do it, I put one of these videos out every month for people. So I want you to be able to have that information. So what we look at right now, what I'm looking at is what's coming in for April, what's going to be present during the month of April. And during the month of April, in the general month, all throughout the month, what we're going to see is there's a big emphasis that's going to be put on evaluation and assessment. So when I see this come up in world event type things, um, this is going to be assessing about where are things at and what has and has not worked. So there's going to be a lot of reflection going on. Okay, we're at this position. We have these decisions to make. Do we, does Trump pull out of Iran? Does he stay in Iran? And it'll be looking at it saying, well, what's our situation? What did this country have left to use against the world? Are they in a position they're not going to hurt anybody now, or do we still have things to be concerned with? That's the type of assessment things that I see coming in. Looking back and saying, well, what has happened when somebody's pulled out of a war at a certain time? What has happened when they pulled out too early or too late? What are the consequences of that? So it's going to be kind of a big assessment period. And that sometimes I find can frustrate people a little bit because they want everything to happen now, right? Like make it happen now. We want everybody, arrested in jail, whatever. And you can't do that. You have processes that you have to go through. Like you have steps you have to take along the way. And it's kind of like you can get an addict some counseling, but if you never remove the drugs off the street, the chances are they're going to keep being an addict. If you don't remove the people that are, if you don't come down on the people who are selling the drugs to them in the first place, it's going to be a lot harder and it's just going to come back again, even if they have a temporary thing. So that's the type of concept. And that's why this evaluation, this assessment period becomes very important because even when we're going through things, it's just like in a relationship. When you're going through a relationship, every now and then you need to stop and you need to assess, hey, where's our relationship? Are you still the same person I married, or are you somebody different? Are you shifting? Are you changing? What's going on here? And so assessment periods are valuable in all different areas of our life, not just world leaders looking at things that are going on, but they're important. And as individuals, they're important for us too, because if we're assessing, hey, this is what's happening in the world, this is the direction things are going, without our judgments or our perceptions, just facts like, wow, it seems like there's a lot of technology things coming around. Wow, it looks like there's a lot of shifts happening from this to that. And then we can stop and look at it and say, okay, what do I need to do if this is the direction it goes? What do I need to be prepared for? What do I need to set myself up for? So this assessment evaluation period is really important. And one thing that is going to be good that I see is that a lot of people are looking at things, making them out to be way worse than they are. And, we have a lot of the news channels and even a lot of the influencers and everybody out there. I know there's a lot of people with good intentions, but that doesn't always mean that they're putting the right stuff out there or that they're putting out truthful stuff out there because they're putting out what they believe want to see versus what is a lot of times. So on the positive note, things are not as bad as they might feel like. Yes, changes are going to be needed, but that's part of what this assessment period is, right? When you stop and assess things, you start to realize, okay, we need to adjust this, we need to shift that, we need to change that, we need to move this person from here to there, those types of things. It's like looking at your chessboard, it's like taking a strong look and saying, okay, if I make this move, what kind of move are they likely to make? What are they seeing from their side of the chessboard? Those sorts of things. So this allows us to make changes that can help us move in a favorable direction. This allows us to adjust the things that need to be fixed and adjusted so that we don't repeat mistakes of the past, so that we don't put ourselves back into another bad position. So again, we want to be patient. And again, sometimes things can be very deceiving. They can look a certain way, but that's not necessarily the way that they are. And we have a lot of that in our world, and that's part of bigger energy patterns where there is a lot of this sort of deceptive stuff. There is a lot of stuff that's happening beneath the surface because obviously you can't just go on primetime news and say, here's my war plans, or here's my plans for installing peace or whatever it is. You can't do that because then it's like the enemy goes, oh, great, that's what he's going to do. Then let's do this, let's just take care of that. You can't expose everything realistically and be able to implement things at the same time. Transparency is great, and I very much support transparency. But we also have to realize that not 100% of things can be disclosed without putting people in danger and jeopardy. When you're talking about government things, when you're talking about people in world leader positions. So we've got to have a little patience with that and keep this in mind. Things are not as bad as they might feel. And a lot of people are feeling it. Like I've heard a lot of people saying, well, where's all these tax cuts we're supposed to be having? Where's all this? Where's all that? And it's like, okay, some of those things haven't gone into effect yet. Everything was signed and passed, but the start date for it hasn't come into play yet. So there's a lot of things that have been implemented and done that we haven't even started to experience yet. And I think that is, again, important things for people to keep in mind. So sometimes we're going to have these waves, the energetic currents coming up. And throughout the years, we're going to have these waves. We're going to have really challenging periods, and we're going to have some really favorable periods along the way. And sometimes things can feel much more challenging. When you're facing reality, when you're making big shifts and big transformation and big change, things can feel bumpy. They can feel rougher than they are because of the uncertainty that might be there, because of the unknown pieces that are there. And that can be scary for people. But fortunately, the energy is helping us understand they're just not as bad as they might feel. We just, yes, we need to make changes. Yes, we need to make shifts, but they're not as bad as they feel like in the moment. So just be patient. Just, just hold on, hold on in there. We're going to be looking a lot at what holds long-term benefits and not just quick fixes. So this is part of this assessment, right? You don't want to do something that just is like putting a Band-Aid over something. You want to get to the real cause, right? You don't want to take just a pill that's going to numb the pain that you feel in the moment. You want something that's actually going to heal what you're dealing with. And that's the same kind of concept. You don't want that quick fix. You want something that's going to stick, that's going to last on there. You know, a piece of Scotch tape is only going to hold something so long, but maybe a piece of duct tape is going to make it hold up a lot longer. What was it? I saw one of the news things where they were using like a duct tape to put the plane together. And I kind of laugh, but it's, you know, it sounds corny, it sounds funny, but there are certain types of tape that are designed for certain types of repairs on planes. You know, are they, again, a permanent fix? No, you know, at some point that piece needs to be replaced and not just have the tape put on it. So I think these are the things that are being looked at right now. And you know, where do we need to make the changes? What are our long-term benefits? Not just the quick fixes. And this is what's gotten people in trouble a lot of times, like with a lot of the agendas that are out there, you know, particularly environmental things, is they just rush right into something. And it's like, we got to do this. We got to do it right now because they're operating from all this fear and this urgency instead of stopping and looking at what kind of impact is this going to have in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line? Is this really reasonable? You know, if you have a place that gets a ton of hail, is it really reasonable to put up solar panels that are going to be trashed when that hail comes? Obviously not. You know? Is it? It's just some common sense stuff like that. So yeah, no, we don't want to do the quick fixes anymore. We've got to be deliberate. We've got to be conscious in what we're choosing, and those things take time. You don't want to rush these big decisions. There's a lot of balancing between the current and the future needs because you know if you only focus on the future, for example, and you say, yeah, great, this is a great system to move into, this is a great change to make, but you've got to be able to get through the transition to get there. You can't just go from here to here. You've got to take some steps along the way. And so in doing that, we've got to have some patience and we've got to look at it and say, okay, well, what do we need to see us through the transition? So you've got to balance, well, what are our current needs? How do we keep current things, like with infrastructure, for example, right? You can't just jump into a new infrastructure necessarily or a new currency or something like that. You have to be able to support people until you can make that currency live or that and bring that new infrastructure in. You can't just jump from one to another. You have to take care of the present moment as well. So that's another piece of the evaluation that's going on, the assessments that are going on. Are we at a point we can make a bigger leap? Are we at a point we can make a bigger step? Or do we need to hold off and do another transition step? All these things have to be regularly looked at in a process, especially when you're dealing with countries and world things and world leaders and big operations and things and big transformations. And we know we're in big transformations in this world, and that's not easy for a lot of people to deal with. They don't like it because it's an uncomfortable space for a lot of people to be in. We're going to see a lot of connections being shown between choices and experiences. So again, unfolding. Look, this was chosen in the past. Look, these countries chose to go down this path, and now look what's happening to them. Matter of fact, I was just bringing this up with somebody on my call yesterday. We do a study call twice a month for my work, and anybody can join in on that. You can check out my social media pages to find out more about that. But we were doing, I was mentioning this to somebody that you've got to really come that we're going to be seeing how these choices played out. So like there was a country that started to try to go all digital. Well, now they're finding out that there are a lot of troubles if they don't have some form of paper currency as well. They're finding out, and now they're trying to push back into more of a cash system. So people don't think these things out. They just try to implement them, implement this, implement that. And again, some of these solutions, some of the digital solutions are much more damaging environmentally, for example, than than something that is a physical currency to have or a physical item in there. So there's always a lot of different components that we have to look at when we're making these assessments. And that's why this is what this month is going to have a lot to do with. They got to stop and look at these pieces and consider these different options of what's happening. So people are going to be been shown more of those connections. And this is, I think, also going to help people understand more about what's happening. Oh, now I get it. Now, what they thought was environmentally friendly implemented certain eco-friendly stuff in Germany or wherever it was. Now they're finding out, oh, there's all these health issues, and oh, there's all of these things that are damaging the environment, and they have no way to get rid of this stuff now, and now it's causing these other issues. And so being shown those connections is really valuable because this helps to work in foresight. When people go into these things through haste, fear, and urgency, they miss the consequences that they can be creating. So when you go back and you look at it and say, oh, okay, they did this worked, they did that, it didn't work. Where do we want to go? And what do we want to follow? So lots of that happening in our world leaders. But also, we have to be able to look at the truth of things. We have to be able to see these connections in order to clear the trauma and the karma that's been set up energetically. So it's like you can't move forward into a healthy relationship unless you've taken the time to work through the trauma that you've been through from previous relationships. Otherwise, you just carry that right into the new relationship, and then you wonder why the new relationship doesn't work. So you have to be able then to say, oh, I actually have some trauma here. Maybe everybody did the best, but I've got this trauma. I need to work on it. I need to make the adjustments. I need to make the corrections. Now I can move forward into that healthy relationship. Now I can move forward into that other environment or space or whatever it is, or job or whatever it is you're looking at, right? Same concept. We have to clear up some stuff first. We have to be able to acknowledge these connections so that we can kind of purify everything so that we can move forward on pure ground, which is what we want. Because then when you move forward on pure ground, so to say, what you're doing is creating strength and stability. And you're creating opportunities to make things more stable instead of moving forward on unstable ground. It's kind of like taking an assessment of the land before building on it and saying, oh, okay, I see we got, something that could possibly be a sinkhole here. So maybe that's not the place to build the house. And we're looking at it and saying, okay, the land's been really stressed here. We're going to have to stop and cultivate some of the soil so that it will work to be able to support the foundation that we're going to use to build on. Same concept going on with that. Some things will stop being in life. So during this month, we're actually going to see some things start to come to an end. It'll be like, we're going to cut this off. Now, this may be more in companies. We may see this in technology arenas. This could be in policies. This could be in health things where they come through and say, okay, this isn't going to be allowed. You cannot put food on the shelf if it comes from a factory, or you cannot put anything out that has this chemical in it, or whatever it is. Or some things will just have to end, or you'll see like tech companies going, okay, we're ending this program now, or we're ending this browser, or we're ending this, or we're ending that. Some things are going to get stopped during this time, and it's going to close out, and these are things that they want to phase out. They're going to remove them. They're not going to be a part of the direction we're headed. And I always find these things interesting, like what are they making obsolete? That can tell us a lot about the direction we're heading, right? Whatever they make obsolete, that they refuse to make, that they refuse to put out anymore, that tells you a lot about where they're trying to move people. And that's where we also have to speak up as people and say, you know what? If I want to move in that direction, that's one thing. Let me go out and support it. If I don't want to move in that direction, and we have to look back and say, well, what happened? What happened in previous times, previous cultures? When something was made obsolete. And a lot of times it hasn't benefited us, right? We've made a lot of things obsolete in the name of convenience, but it hasn't necessarily benefited us. It's created conveniences, but the conveniences that are not the same as benefiting us. And it's actually depleted skills and various things within us that made us stronger. So it's actually weakened us due to that. Then otherwise. So again, this can be a way of power and control, being a way of implementing how to control somebody versus giving them the freedom. But likewise, some things might be ended because they've been keeping too much control and they're opening up freedom, opening up more favorable things. So we have to, again, be open and be objective with what's happening in there. But some things are going to close out and they're going to be based on what fits into the so-called future plan and what doesn't in there. We're going to be asked to move through our pain and our difficulties during this time. So we're going to face some uncomfortable things, I think, during this month. Um, and we have to face those things if we're going to move into a favorable future. So this is all going to be about creating enough stability to ride those waves of change. Again, we're going to have changes. We're going to have changes no matter what. The question is, can we ride through those changes and get through them reasonably and move through into something that is more favorable for us? And that's the real key in there. So, yes, there are going to be pain. There are going to be difficulties. It's just like anything in life. Sometimes to put yourself in a better position in life, you have to move. You have to make a change. And that means you're going to end where you're living and you're going to go into a new space. And that can be painful sometimes because you're going to miss people, the friends and connections that you've developed. And then, but you're going to make some new friends too. So again, it's all this balancing thing in there, but we've got to face it. We got to work through that pain, that difficulty, that challenges, seeing things we don't like, all of that, so that we can move on. Power battles are likely to happen during this time. And more and more people, as these power battles come up during this month, are going to be seeing the importance of self-sufficiency. How self-sufficient are you? Because when power battles emerge among countries, world leaders, ruling forces, things like that, um, it can create some pretty bumpy rides for the average person along the way. So we really want to look at that. And that's going to drive people like, you know what? I really don't want all my money in one place. I don't want all of one type of thing, or I don't want everything connected. Yeah, it might be convenient to just log on to one site, but if that one site goes down, I've lost everything. Same kind of concept, but if I have things spread over multiple sites and only one site goes down, then I haven't lost everything. So I think this self-sufficiency is really important, and this is a time of strengthening people personally, strengthening people to be able to stand on their own, to stand up for their freedom, to take their power back in many ways. So we probably will see people taking their country back. I mean, Iran's already involved in all of that right now, so we may see that actual transition happening. We're going to have changes of leaders, power structures. Some are going to be removed, some are going to be forced out. Those who are getting forced out are probably going to kick and scream like a little tantrum because they're losing that power and that influence in there. So there are going to be challenges. When you have somebody that has something that's happening that they don't like, they're going to make life difficult for the people that are you know, holding them accountable, so to say. Um, that's the way things work in this world. And so we are going to see some probably, a little bit push and pull in there, but I think this is where we're going to be at. And this actually lines up, I think, with some of the things that Trump has mentioned about this is the time that we will pull out. So I think this is the energy currents are actually correlating with some of the things that he has said along the way in there. So yeah, they're not going to make it easy. The people that are being forced out, they're not going to make it easy. Um, but what we're going to see also in these power battles is another aspect of putting money into individuals' hands. And this can be powerful, putting money into making people self-sufficient. It's just like giving people opportunities, school choice opportunities. Look, here's your funds to go to school. You can choose whatever school you want to go to. You want to go to a public school, go to a public school. You want to go to a private school, go to a private school. So the choice becomes yours. Opening up opportunities. So, like some people really fought against some of that stuff here in the States, but then on the other hand, you look at it and they say, yeah, but you're closing off opportunities. Not really. You're giving people choice and more opportunities because some of the people that maybe aren't in a very good neighborhood, they have the opportunity to go into a neighborhood that's safer for their child for school. So there are more possibilities in this. So when you make the people more self-sufficient, your government has less control over them to a certain extent. You put the power into the people, and when you do that, you actually strengthen your communities, you actually strengthen your countries, and you strengthen the world. You end up strengthening the world by doing that. So this is going to be a time of really um, helping communities as well to become self-sufficient and encouraging communities to be self-governing. Look, don't rely on the government for everything. Yeah, it's great to get the grants, it's great to get this, but do what is best for your community. And I think we're going to see more things shifted for communities again, instead of this blanket, everybody gets the same thing, because what you need in a city is different than what you need in a rural community. And so doing things that will strengthen the community based on what it needs versus giving it all the same things, because the same thing won't work in different places. And that's going to be very empowering. And again, bringing more power back to the people, bringing in more positive things that way. So it's actually going to open opportunities. To some people, it's like, are you closing off opportunities, taking things away from us? No, we're actually going to be opening up opportunities. And I think that's the powerful things. Now, we need to have discernment. Discernment's going to be really critical to keeping freedom. So these people that are going through shifts in their leaders and the country leaders and different positions, people have to speak up to choose freedom. And that's going to be a big thing. The discernment, again, seeing through some of these things. What is this really doing? Is it really freedom, or is it really choice? Is it really better, or is it hurting us and helping some other place? So that discernment becomes really critical, and that's another part of the assessment. You have to stop and assess things and see where they're at so that you have the discernment to understand what are going to be the best possibilities or opportunities or wisest choices to make in something. Those with ill intentions are going to try to be selling people on conveniences, but they're actually removing power. So we need to be very careful again of these people who are trying to sell us conveniences. Oh, look at how easy this is going to be. Look, you won't have to do anything anymore. Look at this convenience this is going to create for you. And those that are doing that are trying to have absolute and total power control. And, I know there's a lot of people out there that like Elon, but he does a lot of this. And that is something we really have to be aware of. Look, you won't have to work, you won't have to do, and, look, it's universal high income, it's still universal digital currency controlled income. Whether you call it high income or basic income, it's the same thing. And it's still about government controlling everything in that position. So you have to be careful of that. We must not let others handle things for us. This is very important. Um, we are in battles for autonomy right now. We're in battles to continue to have choice in our life. And without choice, it's kind of like a game over thing. If you lose your choice, you lose your freedom. If you lose your freedom, you're never gonna rein in the corruption. The corruption is going to run so rampant and so wild and so out of hand. So we really want to look at that. What is going to hold my autonomy? And again, if you have strong individuals, autonomous people who can function for themselves, then you're going to have strong communities. You're going to have strong countries. You're going to have a strong world. Things may not be as convenient. They might be less convenient, but they bring stronger benefits. And that's really important in there. So we're going to be getting shown this month how much power we have over our own life. And I think this is going to be a big eye opener because I think a lot of people live under the perception that they have a lot of freedom, but they don't. And I think that's going to be very true in like socialist countries. I think that will come and really hit home. I think Australia is one of those places that might be seeing a lot of that coming down. Wow, we really don't have the freedom that we thought we had. And I know they're in a battle for their freedom right now. And they're starting to speak up and starting to go through things. So really looking at that and saying, how much freedom do I have in life? And sometimes I think we find out we have more than we think we do. And sometimes a lot of times we find out we don't have as much as we think we do. And that could be, again, that can be one of those scary bumps that I was talking about that can be hard for people to face. But we're going to have to face that. And we're going to, because again, if we don't recognize it and say, oh, I really don't have the freedoms that I thought I have, then you're never going to be able to maintain your freedom because you're going to keep turning your freedom over for conveniences. So, very big thing with that. And we're going to see money and things being approved probably in April that will help people to get a new start on life, that's going to help communities with what's best for their community. So again, what's best in a rural community, not the same as what's best for a city community. Very different needs, very different focuses a lot of times. Yes, there are some general things that you want in every community, safety, right? Healthy food, different things like that. But, you know, you have access in different ways. In rural communities, we often have access to farmers, which isn't as conveniently accessed in a city. So lots of, again, different components and looking at this and saying, how do we give people a new start on life? What are some of the pieces that we need to implement in order to start to create a more favorable life for people at large? And I think this is going to be a very positive, powerful way to go. And we've got to support those who are maintaining rights and freedoms. So where there are leaders that are maintaining rights and freedoms, or they're doing it in certain things, that's what we want to support. And if they're not, then we need to speak up and say, no, we're not doing this. And remember, again, they're at the mercy of what we want. We have given them over so much power, but they can't do anything if we all stand up and say, we're not going along with this. And again, these are part of those waves that are going on. Now, from the 1st through the 20th, we really want to watch partnerships. Opposites are going to be working together in harmony during this time. So this, again, can be very confusing for people. They're like, I thought those people were at battle with each other. I thought they were warring against each other. That doesn't mean they can't work together in harmony. They may have different views on things. They may run their countries totally different. They may be considered opposites. It's just like men and women being opposites in the way they handle things, do things, feel things, process things, right? But that doesn't mean they can't work together. And we can. And that's where we've got to come in. So we really want to watch what are those partnerships and not just automatically assume, oh, this person's a puppet to that person, or this person has control over that person now because they're working together. No, not necessarily. They can both be independently functioning. They've just decided that they both want their countries to thrive, and they're coming into agreement in how that can work through partnerships. through working harmoniously together. And this is kind of that respecting of boundaries, right? I won't tell you what to do if you don't tell me what to do. And, but, if you'll help me with this, I'll help you with that, even if we don't agree on what we want for ourselves. We can do it. So this is going to be an interesting time with that. Some of this may be different than what we want, but it's going to be what we need. And that's the thing we have to stay focused on. It's not just about what we want, it's about what we need to regenerate things, what we need to have successes. Because if your country isn't thriving, if the communities aren't thriving, okay, you put yourself in these weak and vulnerable positions and then you lose everything. So we have to look at what are our needs, what's going to generate the successes. So we're not going to get everything we want, but we can get everything that we need. And that's going to be more important, especially when we look at that longer picture down the line with things. Um, this is a time where weak nations are going to be partnering with strong nations in there. Sorry about that, almost a sneeze. And this is going to allow those weaker nations to do more than they can do on their own. And this is what partnerships are about. It's about being able to do more than we can do on our own. Yes, we want to be as strong as possible on our own, but that doesn't mean we should just shut off the opportunity to have resources from other places. Yes, we want to have our basic survival be able to happen on our own. It's like the US. It's like, yes, we need to have our oil strong so that when something goes down in these canals or this strait or whatever, we're not affected by it for our basic needs. But on the other hand, isn't it nice that we can get certain things from other countries that we don't have in our own country? Maybe they're extras, maybe they're luxuries, but it's still nice to have that partnership, that agreement, that trade to go on in there. So we're going to see that partnership coming in between the weaker and the stronger nations. And the goal is really to develop those weaker nations to become stronger on their own. So it's not just about a big strong nation taking over a weaker nation or having control over it. It's about taking it in and showing it, here's what you need to be doing to get strong. I'm not going to be, your sugar daddy for you to live off of, but I'll help you develop your own strength. And I'll help you give what you need to put your own 2 feet on the ground and take care of yourself. It's going to be that kind of a concept and things. We're going to be completing what is started and considering what the next step is. So again, this assessment, right? We got to look at, okay, let's finish up what we're starting. As we're finishing this up, what's the next step we want to take? Well, we have to stop. What do we have? What are we working with? Coming back to that assessment piece in there. Um, and we have to be responsible for our actions in this process. What is the responsible action? Okay, they're going to be people, they're just not going to like some of our choices, but it is the most responsible thing to do. It is the thing that's going to support us moving forward. It is the thing that's going to take care of us and make us more robust and more strong. And then we can build more into some of the things we want. So again, these incremental steps and things. Now, people who are living very materialistically, who are very heavily rooted in materialism, they're probably going to be triggered by those who are standing in divine alignment, or those who are doing the responsible thing, or who are um, making things stronger, who are making these shifts and changes, and looking at, hey, what is ethical? What is ethical? What is humane? What has a spiritual foundation to it? All of these things are being considered in the decisions, because it's not just about doing something. It's like there's a lot of things we can do, but at what cost? That doesn't make them ethical in there. So weighing these different pieces up, but the really materialistic people, they're going to get upset. They're going to get upset at those people who want to do things so-called right, or really want to do things in a responsible way. And so we might see a little turbulence coming up in there. We're going to see a focus being put on helping those that are in need. Again, nurturing, this is about nurturing a positive existence. How do we get the needs of the people met? Not just their wants, okay, their needs, their actual needs met. This is going to be a big thing. And, this is going to bring some contrast to um, different things because what we're looking at is to create a positive experience, we need to expand the spiritual energy. We need to expand the heart-centered energy, the caring, the integrity pieces, components like that. And that's going to be a contrast to war, social upheaval, revolutions. And again, this is another piece where I look at the component like this energy point and I say, okay, so here's another reason. This is Trump's going to be cutting this off in the first part of the month. We're going to probably see the Iran war stop pretty quickly going into April. So I think he's going to take care of it early in the month, and it's like, okay, this is going to be done. Now, people don't like to connect those pieces and say, oh, I don't like Trump, so I'm not going to see him working in divine alignment. I'm not saying he's perfect. Don't get me wrong. I just look at the energy currents and see who's standing where and what they're doing. Okay. Um, and he's going to stop that war component in there. So I think, again, this is those things, stopping some of these components. And, these things, they funnel money into corruption. But here again, this is part of the piece that people miss. Sometimes, it's not so much that something is supporting the corruption as much as it is setting bait. And that's a tricky piece for people to discern when somebody is funding corruption and when they're setting bait, because sometimes what you have to do is let something go so that you can see more of the board, so to say, so that you can look at things from this broader perspective and say, okay, who's grabbing here? Who's doing what? Who's trying to keep this going? Who is trying to end this? Who's stepping forward and helping out? And who is creating resistance and challenges for their own personal gain? And what do they have to gain by doing that? So these different things, while, on one hand, yes, it funnels money into these areas, some of this has been about finding out where that money is going so that they can further unfold those areas of crime and corruption and criminal activity and unethical activity. So again, some of these things is not so much that they're trying to keep a war going as they're unfolding deeper things. But again, I think the war stuff is a lot of it's going to be stopping here at the beginning of April. Wars are a distraction to keep people busy and to fund those who are greedy and corrupt in general. In general. But again, in some of the situations they're in now, it's also to get in and look deeper at things. And you can't look deeper at things until you get into them. So again, if we have a lot of mice issues here in Maine. So anybody, I'm sorry for those animal lovers out there, but if you let all the mice just run rampant, right? And you don't set any traps along the way, you're going to have major mice issues. And this is the way criminal syndicates work too, you have to sometimes drop a little bait in order to get them so that, they stop being an issue. And it's not something that we like to look at. I'm not promoting killing animals or anything like that. Don't anybody go wild and crazy about that. But that being said, okay, sometimes you have to put a little bait out to find out where somebody stands. Don't tell me everybody has done a little testing, right? Who hasn't tested their partner in a relationship to some extent, right? Thrown a little bait to see if they would look somebody else's way or stand up for you or whatever the case is. It's the same concept. Sometimes you have to go into something in order to get the information that you need. So I think a lot of this stuff actually is under control, in my opinion, uh, when I look at these things. And I think that, again, things are not as bad as they might seem on the surface, which I mentioned earlier. And And I think this is flushing things out. I think it's going to be exposing more things and helping them know, what are we really dealing with? What do we still need to deal with? What needs to be taken care of? What needs to be adjusted? Going back into all of that. So continuing on with these first 3 weeks of the month, we've got to be careful of those that are working with a lot of charm and putting out things that sound really good, but then using fear and urgency to create action or to get people to do things without thinking. So this is some of the things that we saw, not as much in America as other countries, but we saw it with like the WHO and things like that, where they'd come on and they'd be really charming, like, oh, okay, well, we're going to take care of this, we're going to do this, but if you don't put a mask on and go get vaccinated right now, you're going to die, and you're going to be responsible for people dying. Okay, so these are the things we have to watch out for. If there's fear and there's urgency involved, it's probably not the path to take. 99.9% of the time, it's probably not the path to take. I mean, okay, if you've got a bear chasing you, okay, fear and urgency, you're going to have to take action in that moment. But most of the time, we're not in that position. So we have to be careful of those people that come on really charming, like, oh, this is going to be better for everybody if you do this. And, but you've got to do it right now. You can't wait on this. Um, that's when we get ourselves into trouble. So we've got to be really, really careful of that. Be willing to be patient, be willing to wait, be willing to research, take the time to do your own assessments on things, do your own research on things, and don't just jump into whatever is being, pushed on you. We've got to research things on our own. This is very, very important. And again, this is part of some of this down period. Part of this assessment period is going back in and needing the time to research things before moving forward. Again, you don't want to just move forward without knowing what you're moving forward into, because that's where we get into trouble. That's where we get a lot of waste of resources being spent. That's where we end up finding out, oh, I guess that wasn't such a good idea to do. So doing the research is part of the protection when we're making shifts, changes, transformation, adjustments, all of those things in there. And this is done by taking a break. And I think what's going to also hit people the wrong way is because there is going to be this break in there. And then people are going to be able to have the opportunity to take a little break, have a little fun. And I think we're going to see some real mudslinging around. Oh my God, Trump was on the golf course again. Or, oh my God, Ted Cruz was off on a vacation again. And, well, these people should be taking care of our country, not taking vacations. And we have to realize that sometimes there are down points. And just because somebody goes out for a dinner one evening or plays a game of golf or whatever their other thing is, um, doesn't mean that they're not doing their work. If they've been working 7 days a week for the last, 10 weeks, they can have a day off in some ways. So I think we have to be careful of that. Um, and this is also, again, a time, what appears to be having fun may not be all fun. It may still be business. It may be part of the research of going out and learning about what other people are doing and assessing things. So what might look like a vacation might actually be a process of gathering information. It's like if I go to an art fair, I get to see what other artists are doing. So yes, it's fun and it's enjoyable, but at the same time, I'm gathering information for what could help me in my own work. So don't be deceived by that. Real leaders are going to be rising up during this time, these first 3 weeks. They're really going to be giving power back to the people. Again, this brings me back to, I think this is going to be a time they're going to stop the wars and they're going to put the power into the hands of the people, like in Iran and probably a couple of other places too. We're going to see the self-sufficiency increase, and where self-sufficiency increases, so will abundance. So again, it's all these steps we have to take. You don't just get the abundance dropped in your lap. You have to develop that self-sufficiency so that you can maintain the abundance when you get it. in there. And the more that we can do for ourselves, the more that we're going to be able to help other people. And this is why Trump keeps coming back of saying, I want us to be a strong country, because the stronger we are as a country, the more we can help other people. And the more that, we make other countries strong, the less they're going to need to deplete from us, the less they're going to need us to do for them, the less that they have to draw on us for. So it's to everybody's benefit to make them strong, to bring them into the self-sufficiency. Um, and breaking down these hierarchical structures, drawing on each person's skills. So again, your real leaders, they're not just saying, hey, I'm the end all authority, so to say. I mean, that may be part of their position. They may have authority over other people, but they don't work in those hierarchical structures. It's like it's a team for them. It's like sitting down saying, okay, yes, I'm the manager and I've got to bring all of you people together and I'm coordinating this and I'm doing that. And yes, I have to make some final decisions on things. However, so and so, you're the expert on military actions, and that skill is incredibly needed. Without your skills, it's going to be hard for me to make a wise decision. And so, we need you to be on top of the publicity because the communications, and that's a skill that is greatly needed. And it's not that the publicity person is better or worse than the war person necessarily. They each have their place and their skills. Every role has its position, whether it's finance or, maintaining foreign affairs or communications or whatever it is. Each one has an important role. So it's not about one being better than the other. And this is what we're going to start seeing more of, this breakdown in the hierarchical structures and just simply drawing on people's skills, which is where we get the greatest strength and increase the self-sufficiency from as well. So we're going to probably see a lot of moving people around again as these assessments are happening. It's going to be like, okay, this person's kind of done what they've done here. I can bring somebody in, they can take over from here. Now this person has shown they've got this skill or they don't have the skill, so let's move them over to this other position. And I think they'll be more valuable over there. So I think we're going to see people getting moved into roles that they're more suited for during this time. And also a training. So if there's people out there that says, hey, I really want to come in and I want to be able to do this. And so, somebody says, hey, I want to be president of the United States. Okay, great. Can you govern a state? Can you run a community? And so they're going to say, okay, well, let's put you in this position. Let's see, let's see if you can make it in this position and see what you do with that. And then that will start to show us, do you have the capability and the skills to become president? And if you don't, then that will help us to know what skills we need to help you develop so that you can become the president. So that's going to be, I think, a big piece in there. And so this shifting is going to happen. But again, that's part of the reassessment. We don't need to freak out over it. This is just again, it's a smart thing. It's like, okay, I've been using this room for, the last, so many months. What can I do to make it more functional for me? You do that in your home, right? I used to go through periodically in places that I lived, especially when I was younger. And I'd go through and I'd just rearrange everything periodically. And part of it was I liked the change, the variety, the shift in the energy. But then another part of it was this component of, okay, I've lived this and this isn't as functional. I'd like to shift this here and it's more functional for me. I like it better there. I feel better when I sit here versus there, type of thing. Okay, from the last week and a half of the month, the 21st through the end of the month, we're going to start seeing a lot of lies, deception, manipulation coming up, sabotage come up. So those that are in the criminal syndicate networks, not doing such nice things with ill intentions, we're probably going to see them try to sabotage the people that are trying to do some favorable things in the world. And but we don't need to worry about it because they'll end up exposing themselves in that process. We can see friends turn on each other for personal gain and survival. So we can see some more people changing parties or alleging to change parties Or again, we're going to start fleshing out more of those people who are taking kickbacks and profits from things, and whether they turn against people that are cutting back their area of profit, and looking at that. So we can see this turning going on. The people who are working in the lies, the deception, the manipulation, they're going to be doing some of this turning on the people that are in truth and integrity. And this is going to show us also, again, this is another way of assessing things, right? This is going to show us where the weak links are. Who are those people that are going to give in to peer pressure? Who doesn't have the strength to stand up and do the right thing instead of taking that payoff or that bribe or whatever else in there? So this is important because you can't have people who can be easily swayed in important decision-making decisions. You don't want your leaders to be people who can be easily swayed by peer pressure. Then they're not working for the people. They're not going to work for what is best for their community or their state or their country or whatever else in there. So we've got to be careful of enemies who also suddenly decide they're going to try to be our friend. If you have somebody that is some extremist on one side of the fence and all of a sudden they're trying to make you believe that they're your friend when they've had this opposing view, yeah, you probably want to use some caution with that. And we may want to realize that some of these people are not the friends. These are going to be kind of like traitors. They're going to be, turncoating. They're just getting close to people to find out how to sabotage them. And so definitely a lot of caution. When I see this influence, I think of Zelensky because he's so easily influenced in a lot of ways. Doesn't mean he's totally 100% bad person, but he's so easily influenced by people and he will totally be against somebody and then pretend to be their friend and, and then turn against them again. That's the type of thing we'll see. So he might even come into the spotlight again in this last week and a half of the month. That wouldn't surprise me a bit. Those with confidence, standing in truth and integrity, they are going to be the people that are holding the power. And they instinctually know who is who. There's an instinctual thing there with those people because when you stand in truth and integrity, you can usually spot the bullshit. I mean, that's the way it is. You can see who's standing in that and who isn't. And they'll know. It'll be that gut instinct. And I know that's going to drive some people crazy too. It does with Trump. He'll work very instinctually, like, what am I feeling today? It's part of the amusement of him, in my opinion. I know people don't agree with me on that sometimes, but um, it's part of the amusement. He works very instinctually, and that's part of what gives him power because he's unpredictable that way. But that instinctual, we'll see those people that are in truth and integrity, they're going to be working in instincts. We're going to see a lot of purging of these weak links. So as the weak links show themselves, as people take the bait on things, they're going to get purged out. That's like done. Security clearance revoked. It's going to just kind of happen that fast. And this is about purifying situations because again, as we go into these deeper layers, we make this progression. We have to have that pure space to work from. You can't bring all the contamination, all the garbage of your past into the future and expect the future to work. It doesn't work. You got to clear it out. You got to cleanse it out completely, or it's just going to grow back. It's like if you leave some mold in your refrigerator or whatever, it's going to keep growing mold. You got to clean it all out, not just 80% of it. It's the way it works. Success is going to come from integrity and doing quality of work, and recognition may be given for this. So I think we might see more recognition being given out to those people who are doing quality work, who are operating in integrity, who are choosing to do that so-called right thing. Corruption is going to be seeking a lot of attention. And I think the key is a lot of times we just have to hold the truth and integrity. And as it seeks its attention, it's going to expose itself. So, it's just like Um, it's just like things of, like with the Epstein styles, open this up, show this. Uh-oh. I'm in there. It's that type of thing that it's going to expose itself. It's self-destructive when it goes down these attention-seeking modes, and that's the way corruption is. It's always got to be in the spotlight in one way or another. It's always trying to grab that spotlight. So just let it, just let it. So again, some of these things where we think, oh, they're not doing anything. Why aren't they doing anything about this? Well, they are. They're, staying out of the way actually brings things up sooner than if they are doing all kinds of things. Creative thinking is going to bring solutions during this time through caring and observation. So this comes back to when something's really important and it's really a need and there's really a care and a concern for something and it's got to be taken care of, right? Like the needs of people have to be taken care of over the desires. The people who struggle, our senior citizens, our veterans, different people. It's very important that we care about things. And that caring leads us into observation. And then that observation brings up the solutions because we're looking at things from different perspectives, different ways of looking at them instead of being in this narrow-minded, structured thinking. And this is very important. It's just like if you have a partner or a spouse and you see them struggling and you see them in hard times, it really hits you here in the heart, right? And it's like, oh, man, this is really getting to me. And it's that caring in the heart that it's like, we just can't let this go on. We can't let this trauma go on. I can't, let them stay in this pain. I can't let them stay in this abusive situation, whatever it is. And then that leads you to start looking at all these different options. Well, what's happening? What's going on here? And you start observing more and more and more. And through that, you create solutions. So again, this comes back to we have to be patient because this observation is going on. And it's through that observation that the solutions are going to come up. So we don't want the force and the pressure on people in there. We also have a lot of death, rebirth, and transformation energy. So again, more of these endings, completions, but also probably some physical deaths that are happening in this time. There's going to be some very sudden and unexpected endings happening. And I think that could shine light on truth about things. I think things that have been in the works for a long time may just quickly be implemented during this time period. And that may feel like things are very sudden and unexpected, but they may not be as sudden and unexpected as we think. Or, we get these different things where we know in these criminal syndicates and these corruption circles of people that sometimes they will just take somebody out to create a distraction while they work on doing something. So we could see some deaths coming up, especially if things are being exposed, especially if the truth is coming out, especially if they're on a self-sabotaging path. You could see a couple of high-profile deaths come up during this time. You think about certain people just aren't doing well health-wise. You think of maybe Biden, for example, not doing well. Uh, Clinton, he wasn't doing too well the last couple of times I've seen him live on things. And I think sometimes, these are the type of high profile people that we will see, be used in things. And there's probably some others, maybe not even as high profile as that. But this is a time where really the transformation we're having to make and look at and deciding how to create has to do with leaving behind those who are only seeking personal gain and acceptance. So it may come to a point where, again, for somebody like Zelensky, where he's so focused on all the personal gain, or maybe he's overly controlled by these networks. I don't know exactly 100%. But it's going to be one of those things where, like, okay, if all you're going to do is seek personal gain, we're all moving forward without you. And I think he's the type of person something like that could happen to because he hasn't been accepted into the UN. He hasn't been accepted in as these different things. He doesn't have the backing and the support that he believes he has, maybe. Um, some maybe are backing him, but only out of force. So again, I think this is a thing like, hey, we got to make these changes and these transformations, and either you can come with us or you can fall behind. Your choice. And that's going to be a big position. Most will move forward with or without others because it's about avoiding danger. It's kind of like, look, you're in a dangerous situation. There's no staying put where you are. If you stay put, you're wiped out. So you got to move forward or you got to move backward, basically. Either you move forward or you leave yourself in this huge, dangerous situation. So this is another step to clearing out the old and stepping into our destiny. So again, I think some big shifts could be happening at this time. That plays right in. That's where it's going to magnify the month's energy of this transmutation of things ending, things finishing, things being closed out, not becoming available anymore. And I think that's going to be a lot of this. Like I said, there may be some literal death during this time, but I think it's more on the transformation. It's more the clearing out in order to move forward concept of it. And we're going to be learning from favorable and unfavorable experiences. We're going to get both, and we're going to learn from all of them. And this is going to contribute to the success in bringing inspiration. We're going to have a variety of experiences in this last week and a half. So it might feel a bit like we're doing this from day to day. And I think we have some, kind of intense energy patterns in there too. And part of this is learning what are we capable of? What are other people capable of? What do we want to accept and not reject? And again, this is part of those things where sometimes you have to go in and you have to try something in order to know what you need to do, in order to know what you have to work with. Sometimes you just have to go in and test something out to see, does this actually have potential or not have potential? So I think this could be kind of a testing period as well. And that too may lead to things suddenly being ended. Like, okay, we thought we were going to go down this path, but you know what? We started to test this out. It's not going to work. So we need to go in this other direction. I think that's a component too. Now, the action energy for this month from the 1st through the 9th, so almost the first week and a half, well, the actions that we're really going to be seeing taken is a lot of regaining command over life by focusing on what holds true value. So, for example, regaining command over life, you take a place like Iran, for example, where the people want to take their country back. And what holds the true value? Their freedom, their ability to choose their leaders, things like that. So by keeping that as the focus, then things can get turned around. Extravagance, those people who try to be in the materialism, the extravagance will put them under the control of others. So again, I kind of talked about that already, where people who are living for material or personal gain can be bought and sold. And all that does is put them under the control of other people because they're always looking for that personal gain and who's going to give it to them. And they will do whatever they have to do to get it. So in that process, what do? They lose the things of value in that process and seeking the status and seeking, the money components of things. It crushes them in the end is what it does. We're going to see a lot of this being tested and tempted on what is addictive for us versus doing the right thing. So again, if people have this addiction to personal gain and profits and things like that, so I think here again, a lot of things we got to be careful. It's not all what it appears on the surface, right? And Trump is notorious for this. Um, he'll put people in certain positions. He'll test them in certain ways. He'll throw some wrenches in their system to see what they're going to choose. And, he's checking to see, hey, is this person really going to do the right thing when it's uncomfortable for them? Or are they going to take that payout? Are they going to take that bribe? Are they going to take, what they're being offered? So a lot of tests and temptations. And again, this is part of that assessment. You test and you tempt to find out. It's like testing and tempting somebody who's been an addict, and when they've actually shifted and they've changed and they're on the path of doing the right thing, they can resist those tests and those temptations. It doesn't impact them. But if they haven't truly changed, then they will take those tests and those temptations. And I know addictions are a little bit different, but not completely, because this personal gain is an addiction, just like a drug is an addiction. So, and the people that support giving those resources are nothing more than the equivalent of a drug dealer or supplier in there. Um, so a lot of that going on, and we're going to see a lot of drama and turmoil come up again. And I think part of this is because I think like Trump's going to be ready to stop the war, and there's going to be those people that will create all kinds of drama and turmoil to try to keep the war going. So again, that's going to be showing, well, who are the people that are really trying to keep war going for their profits versus the going in and doing the other work of things that actually are uh, more favorably based in there. So a lot of drama and turmoil. This is going to come from those people that are losing power. Again, that kind of rebellion energy, that sort of backlash energy, that we could see sleeper cells activated during this time. And what their goal is to make everybody afraid and miserable. That's their goal. And then they're going to turn around and play the victim, like, look at how the system's victimizing me. If the system hadn't victimized me, I wouldn't have set this bomb off. Or that's the type of thing that we're going to see. It's going to get wild. There's going to be some really wild, crazy stuff, I think, going on in this first week and a half as everything's trying to get balanced out in there and settled down and released and ended in there. We're going to see weather manipulation. We could see some really big storms coming through different areas to create harsh storms. And I think, again, this weather manipulation is, like warfare in a way. It's weaponry. We know this has been around for many, many decades. It's been used in wars and battles in different decades for different purposes. And I think this is one of those things where, again, the corrupt players, they may try to do some things. Likewise, we could also see it being used to help keep corruption in check and be unable to make certain moves or shifts. It's just like if you had to go in and bomb an area, maybe you want everybody, maybe you want certain people um, not to be able to get out. And I don't mean the common people, don't get me wrong. I mean terrorist type people who are truly trying to use nukes in the world and things like that. So it can be used either way, but we also have to be prepared, okay? Storms, weather might come up more suddenly, it might shift more suddenly. Yeah, let's be prepared for that. Let's have a little backup for a week or two that we can get through something. A lot of drug reactions, I think. And I think if we do see some physical deaths during this time, there could be connections to drug reactions going on, mental instability going on. There could be drug reactions that create mental instability, and then that creates people to go out and harm other people in there. So I think, again, these aren't necessarily false flags or even necessarily distractions. I think it's just literally bad drug interactions. Um, and this is especially going to be happening in people who feel powerless or in addicts who can't stop. So their drug takes a bad turn. Their drug is laced with something they're not used to it being laced to, those sorts of components to it. So we do definitely want to be careful. We do want to be careful around people who are very emotionally reactive. The key is always to stay very calm, very present, just very don't go into the reactions and the fears with them, because that's what they will feed off of, but remaining calm. And calm is where we keep a clear mind in situations that are challenging or even dangerous. But we do want to be alert to it, and I think these will hit the headlines in this first week and a half. And then from the 10th on, the type of action that we're going to be seeing happen will be people may want to get a little lazy. They may want to ease up on things, but doing this puts them in danger. And the people who do get easy, they get too relaxed too fast. And this is where we might even see, the bulk of the war is ended in that first week and a half, but then there's still a little military presence remaining so that nothing can come back up again. Nothing can be restarted right away. And the people who get too relaxed, too easygoing in things, let up too quick, too fast, they're going to find themselves in dangerous situations and it's going to jolt them back into reality. So even though we might want to get ease up, we have to be careful not to ease up too much. We got to still stay with it and alert. Ideas may flow, but we can't put them into action yet. So this is not a good decision-making time. So again, we have to be patient. They got to do the research. They got to do the assessments. They got to do all of those things first, and then they can make decisions. And we don't want them making decisions under influences where the mind isn't clear, where there's miscommunications and misunderstandings because everything just has to be redone. And in some things, you don't get second chances to redo them. So you need to make sure they're done right. So again, just be patient. And part of this component in here, with not forcing the decisions in there, is because there's also a lot of lies and deception that still has to be sorted through, a lot of manipulation that's still happening in things. And there are lies that have to be confronted before certain decisions can be made. So that, in other words, the truth has to come out about certain things before you can decide which way to go. It's kind of like you need to wait for the study to come out to find out whether something works or doesn't work before you just move forward and encourage everybody to do it, type of thing. And some things may just be misunderstandings. Again, some of what appears to be lies may not actually be lies. It may just be miscommunications, misunderstandings. But we've got to face the truth. Whether we like the truth or not, we've got to face it. And again, you don't want to be making decisions until you're ready to face that truth. And some of the decisions they may be ready to make, but people have to face certain truths of what's happening in the world before you can move forward with those decisions. Okay, incremental steps, because if people don't understand why those decisions are being made, if they don't understand the truth of something, then you lose the support in what you need to do. You also get a lot of unnecessary turbulence going on from people who get very reactive or who again, they don't understand, so it doesn't make sense to them. So you create a lot more issues, whether we're talking fear or other things. So patience, patience, patience. Again, we've got stuff happening, but at the same time, we've got to have the patience to honor the process of things. This time, the action is spent a lot on exploring options and testing out new things. Remember, this testing, we got to test things a little bit to see if they have what it takes, if they'll be able to support it. It's kind of like, testing a new platform on the internet. That platform might be performing great with 1,000 users or even 100,000 users. But what happens if you have 100 million users all of a sudden on that platform? How many times does it crash? It probably, you're going to find your vulnerabilities and you don't find them until you test them, until you try it out a little bit. So this is a testing period. That's where the energy is being spent. And there's a certain amount of embracing serendipity in order to get solutions. So you might test something and something shows up serendipitously that you weren't expecting to see, and that may lead to a solution. So we got a lot of this, we're working on it. It's kind of like things are being worked on. Just hang in there. We got to make sure that whatever we move forward with is going to be solid and stable and actually create what we need to have created. Okay, thoughts, the mindset of people. First half of the month, the 1st through the 15th. People are going to be thinking about what partnerships do I need? Where do I need to create partnerships? Where do I need to dissolve partnerships? This is what's happening in the leadership mind. So again, it won't surprise me. I mean, Trump's already put it out there. Um, maybe we don't need to be partner in a partnership with the UN. Maybe we just need to have good partnerships with these other countries. Maybe we just need to develop new partnerships under a different, situation, different structure. Um, so really looking at that, I think we're going to see some partnerships get strengthened, some get dissolved. People are seriously thinking about who they're being in partnership with, and we could see some shifts and changes with that. Um, Again, I think there's going to be testing of partnerships going on to really see who is holding a commitment to their alliance and who is not. And that can also come into play with wrapping up the Iran war. I think part of that is going to be connected in here. We're gonna do a couple of final tests to see who's actually going to stand in alliance and who isn't. And this really filters out the people that don't have the strength to move forward. So it's a big thing. If you're going to create bigger stability and strength, that really is going to have the ability to create a favorable future, then you've got to have the people who are committed. You've got to have the people who are committed in there. Um, Past resurfacing is coming up. So the past is going to be coming back up in the mind. And we may learn a lot more about aspects of ancestry, who's connected to who, historical roots and cultures, and historically what has worked, what hasn't worked. So that's going to be on the mind and going back. And as the information's coming in and the assessments are being made and everything's being gathered up, it's like, okay, well, when did this happen in the past and what did they do about it? And how did that work out? And where did it go wrong? And where did it go right? And what can we use to draw on that? I think we're going to see connections with literal and proverbial father energy here. So, for example, we might see literal connections that come out and say, well, you know what? Guess what? Maybe Trudeau really is Castro's son. We may see more of that resurfacing in there because it is specifically the father connection. Maybe we're going to learn who Obama's real father is or learn more about that. Again, these sorts of things. And I think our founding fathers going back into what were the founding fathers, for example, in our country, America, what were their intentions? What were they trying to uphold? What were the obstacles that they ran into? What were they trying to prevent us from losing or getting under again, or, and looking on some of those things. So the father energy has a huge presence during this first half. Now, the second half of the month, the mindset shifts into this balance and harmony space, and looking at what's the practical approaches and looking at expenses. What can we afford to do? What is the cost of doing something? What do we need to support that? What is this transition going to take? So again, a lot more thinking about how do we create the harmony in here? We've been in these different extremes. How do we start to find our balance point in things? And we have to be able to work within our resources. It's no more of this debt system. And I think there's a lot of thought being given to, how do we work within the resources of what we're bringing in, as opposed to operating on a debt system, which just destroys us. It destroys any country, any culture to be operating on a debt system, which is a lot of what we've been operating on for several decades now, is a debt system in there. And we must not give in to peer pressure. We've got to stay in the facts. So again, coming back to this objective assessment of what are the facts. I don't want your perception of what you think things are. What are the hardcore facts of things? And that's where it is. A strong sense of fairness and justice comes up during this time. So a lot of people judging what is fair, what is unfair, what is just, what isn't just. And that is actually going to be used to probably provoke people. So we're probably going to see some narratives being spread out there um, in the internet, in the web area, um, trying to convince people, look, this isn't fair, this isn't just, it's not just what he's doing, or this, but we've got to look at who are those people? Are these the people who have been holding people in like basically slavery for the last several decades under their fiat systems, under their debt systems, under their tutorial structures, Well, you know what? If they're the ones whining that something isn't fair, where was all the fairness when they took control of everybody's lives, when they removed their freedoms, when so there, I think people are going to be kind of charged up in that last half of the month over that. Mentally, there's going to be a lot of you know, aggression coming out on that. And the big thing with this, though, is that we've got to have legal and ethical accountability to get power back. So, that's another thing. We just have to be careful that we don't let that sense of justness and fairness turn us into the very corruption that we're removing ourselves from. And that's always a tricky part in cultures and historical points in time, is that we get so wrapped up in what is just and what is fair. And the reality of it is, in this world, things are not going to be fair. We all have our own path, our own processes that we're working through. We all have our own stuff we're dealing with. Life is not fair. And part of this is people have different needs. The question is what do we do with what we have and what we can work with? And, it's the way this world works. I'm sorry if that blows anybody's bubble, but it's the way this world works. Everything is not going to be fair and just, but we can work in legal and ethical ways. And when we work in legal and ethical ways and we uphold that, then we can have accountability. And when that comes through, that allows people to have that autonomy and to have command over their own life. And yes, life may not always be fair, but if we can have command over our own life, then we've got something that can truly benefit us, that can work for us. I mean, I could whine all day about how things aren't fair in the world, but I don't feel that that's a wise use of my time personally, and that's not going to get me anywhere. What I have to stay focused on is what can I do that gives me the most amount of autonomy in my life. And like I said before, as you age, you lose that naturally. It's just a fact of life. You don't get as much autonomy over your life when your body starts giving out. It's the way it is here. Um, the soul's energy, and I always like to address this because this is the spirit. This is what keeps people hopeful. It's what keeps people, maybe gives them hope or can deflate their sense of hope. The spirit behind life is the life-giving force in so many ways. So, this is what keeps us connected to what is valuable, to hold on to. So in the soul self energy from the 1st through the 24th, so actually this is a good portion of the month. In here, we're sorting out who is in integrity and trustworthy and who wants personal gain and is deceitful. So a lot of this sorting out who is working in a soulful way, who is working in a divine alignment versus who is just for the money, who's just on the material side of things, especially with literal and proverbial family. So that plays a component in things. And we see that, right? I mean, we have family in all different ways. We have our birth family, our DNA family, we have our community that's a family, our friends are our family, in their own way, our country's a family, our state or province, all these things. And of course, we have earthly family too. So this is really sorting that out in these different dynamics. We could see things come up about um, people within families, especially high profile people, and what their families are doing. Are they going after this material gain? Are they going after personal gain? Will they turn on their own family members? Some of them will. Absolutely. Some of them will guilt. Like, man, you gave me, this, you abused me my whole life, and now you need to pay me for that. So this could bring up some things maybe around reparations or stuff like that. um, the key is, where's the soul searching? Are we going to do our own soul searching during this time? And that will lead a lot of people to go their own way when they look at it. That doesn't mean that, again, we're just all divided and everything like that. I mean, you can work with each other even in going your own way with things. It's about deciding, look, I need to make my own choices for my own life for what's best for me versus allowing other people to make them. That's a soulful component in there. So this comes more into a personal level. And again, it's filtering out who's got our back in our family and who doesn't, and as we all know, there are family members who get along and family members who don't. So I think we could see some family dirt brought up. Also victims, a lot of victim energy coming up. So people are not really connected to that soul energy when they're in that victim energy. And this is where we're going to see, again, those people claiming that they have a responsibility or others have a responsibility to take care of them or an obligation to do things for them. So we're going to probably see some of this reparation stuff. So some of these sleeper cells could be activated, create drama and trauma to pretend that they are a victim when they're not a victim, to try to get people to do whatever they want in there. We just have to be careful. We must not allow manipulators to take away from the true need of people, because just closing out all of these programs, it doesn't work, because you have people in genuine true need that those programs were designed for, and there is enough to do it. Now, maybe some shifts and changes and adjustments need to be made so that the people who shouldn't be getting that aren't getting it. Maybe those systems need to be cleaned up more. Maybe that's part of what we'll see. But we have to purify. We have to purify these programs out. And that is a spiritual process, saying, look, this is an ethical thing. You don't get to come in and never have paid into the system and never worked a day in your life and come in and just receive all these benefits. That doesn't work. This is manipulation that they're using to do that. It's deception that they're using to do that. And when people are frauding on the system and scamming the system, they're taking away from the people who actually need it. You know, I know in the state of Maine, there are people who have been waiting 8, 9, 10 years for housing options, and they are truly in need. We're talking disabled people. We're talking people who have actual issues, not just people who are too lazy to work, but actually have issues that need to be taken care of. And why are they waiting that long? Okay, people that just entered the country 3 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, they already have it. And that's why. That's why the people who need it aren't getting it. And because the other people are taking all of the resources. The people who don't need it are taking the resources. And this is the problem when people fraud, when we have that. So the answer is not to cut the programs. The answer is to cut the fraud. You got to go to the root of the problem. And that's part of spiritual and ethical work, is to get down to that root. No more Band-Aid fixes. Got to get to the root of it. And we cannot let those who are, again, just truly lazy and ineligible for things take advantage of things. And we must nourish the spiritual values and not enable the corruption. So this is kind of a big deal in there. I don't think, let me check really quick. I don't think that there was, have to get in and find my marker again. I don't think there was much else on there for the end of the month for that last little part. Let me just take a quick look here and make sure I didn't miss something. Um, Okay, so as we enter into that last week of the month, the 25th on the soul's energy, we've got a choice to make. We can either accept and choose change and transformation, which is what's going to be needed. We're going to need change and transformation, or we can have it forced upon us. And it's always better to choose it than to have something forced on us because when it's forced on us, it comes in unpleasant ways. When we choose it, then it might be challenging for a little while, but then it unfolds into something that is beneficial. And that's a big part of that choice. And when we choose it, we can maintain autonomy, we can maintain freedom, um, and we can step into our destiny energy in there. So it's very important that we're doing that choosing. We're choosing consciously and ethically. We're releasing what doesn't work in there. Um, and then, yeah, when it's forced on us, we step into fate. So when we enter into the fate and we let it be forced on us, then we're going to have freedom removed. We're going to see more restrictions come about, rights get removed when the change is forced on us. And this leads us to go through even harder conditions usually, and things that don't end up in pleasant spaces. Um, in some way, we will see the past again repeating itself. So this is kind of like, okay, are you going to choose differently than before? Are you going to choose wiser this time? So in some ways, we're almost getting a second opportunity with things to make those wiser decisions uh, in there. And past transformation, so-called transformation leaders, are brought into the light, and we may learn things that previous people in power covered up in order to keep control over people. So this may push people even further into wanting like free societies, free countries, seeking ways to be independent of government structures. And then, while it's important to get things that need to get done, and to meet our commitments and responsibilities, yes, that's important to do during this time. We also have to get out and have some fun. We've got to, again, have a little balance. You need a little bit of a break just to refresh and to renew and to restore a little bit. So get the work done, have some play, come back, finish up things. Um, that's going to be a big part. And this also engages the creative energy. So again, it's not just about play and fun. It's about engaging that creative energy to bring up the solutions and the ideas and the possibilities of what will work. Um, and let's see here. Anything else we need to consider? So again, this is an inspiration period. This is a period where we can draw on some inspiration and getting back into that observation, and just experiencing things. We're going to have to experience things to find out where the real fulfillment's going to be in it. So that's what you've got again, the code journey. Pick up your copy, hop over to the website, compassioncodes.com. And sorry, this video was a bit longer today than some of the last couple of ones I've done. It's just so much information sometimes to cover on that month information when we've got a lot going on. And go over to the books tab, select the code journey, go down, find your links, make sure you're under the right year, and pick up your copy. And I'm actually just this weekend here, spring equinox weekend, I'm reducing the ebook price on that, by the way. So if you want to check out what it's like, what the wording is like I like the paperback copy because I like to hold it and it's easier when there's so much information because it is a large book. But that is getting reduced. And if you want to check it out, the ebook can sometimes be a more cost-effective way to check it out. And I know people, they like both the paperback and the ebook. So hopefully you will want to share this out with people and you'll want to like and subscribe to the channel. I always appreciate that. I'm a small channel. I like to think of myself as small but mighty. And the information is valuable, and I know it's not always the things that people want to hear because it doesn't always fit the narrative that they're following, but that's okay. A lot of other people have found it very beneficial to have the heads up on what's going down and to not get trapped. It helps them to not get trapped in some of the narratives that are out there, or to better understand also what is actually happening versus what appears to be happening on the surface. So With that, I will wish you all a wonderful month of April, and I will be back with you the following month. Take care, everybody.